Here I go, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go, closer, closer to my sacred source. That's what we're about in these 7 weeks, getting closer to our sacred source. Now, first I want to start with a little story about 2 little boys who were ages 8 and 10, who were very mischievous. They were always getting into trouble, and their parents knew that if something was going on in the community that was a little, any mischief occurring, that they were probably involved in it. And they were at their wits' end as to what to do about their son's behavior. So they brought the boys to speak to their minister. And the minister agreed to speak with them one at a time, alone. And the 8-year-old went to meet with him first, and the minister sat the boy down and asked him very sternly, "Where is God?" The boy didn't answer, so the minister repeated the question in an even sterner tone, "Where is God?" Again, the boy did not attempt to answer, so the minister raised his voice even more and shook his finger in the boy's face and said, "Where is God?" And at that, the boy bolted from the room, ran directly home, slamming himself into his closet. And his older brother followed him home and into the closet and said, "What happened?" And the younger brother replied, "We are in really big trouble." God is missing, and they think we did it. Sometimes in my life, maybe in your life, you feel like God is missing. Maybe life is filled with challenges. Maybe we're going through some struggles, experiences that we wouldn't call wonderful. And we might think to ourselves, where is God? Where is God in all of this? Well, in this series, based on Richard Rohr's book, The Naked Now, we're going to learn how to be aware of the power and the presence of God within us through Richard Rohr's eye. You know, Richard Rohr is a priest. He's a father. He actually lives in Albuquerque, and where I spent about 11 years of my life there. And he is sometimes in trouble with the church, sometimes not. But he talks about enlightenment from the Catholic perspective, from what they might call the Christian perspective. And he talks in this book about how to see how the mystics see. So what does it mean to be a mystic? Right? We might think it's like Hildegard of Bingen. I'm sure Elizabeth could spout off a whole bunch of mystics from your series. Who else comes up for you as a mystic? Hildegard of Bingen?
Julian of Norwich.
Julian of Norwich.
Thomas Aquinas.
Thomas Aquinas. People who lived a long time ago, right? And who we might think have this special relationship, right? Who are special people. Certainly we couldn't be like that, right? Those are the people that we might call mystics. So a definition of a mystic might be someone who has intimate and firsthand knowledge of God, of the divine, of the sacred, of higher power. Call it whatever you like, whatever makes sense to you. But simply put, a mystic is someone who knows God. Not someone who knows about God, not someone who was taught what God was, but a mystic is someone who knows God at the very depth of their being, knows the sacred, experiences the divine. And once that happens, once we have that experience, once we know God at the very foundation of who we are, it means that wherever we are, we know that God is here and all is well. Right? We know that power and that presence that we call God, right, is always here and is always for us, never against us. In whatever circumstances are happening in our lives, whether I'm sitting at the table with my beloved eating my favorite meal in the world and I've just won the lottery, right, God is there. Or whether I'm experiencing a challenge in my life, my beloved has left, and I have little to eat even, God is here, and all is well. That's the experience of mysticism, of embracing the mystery. The mystic knows that whatever is happening, whether we call it good or whether we call it less than good, that life goes on, that this too, good or not, shall pass. Because the only thing that is constant in life is change, right? This too shall pass. The mystic knows this. So no matter where I am, whether I find the situation comfortable or not, God is here. I know I have all the resources I need right here. Because there's nothing outside of me that can fix it. It's all here. And a mystic is someone who can look at a world of lost people, perhaps, and see the mystic in them as well. Look with compassion and with love at people that we may call lost in the world, even when they're not being loving and compassionate back to you. Right? Being a mystic means living from the center, living from balance with equanimity, with peace in all circumstances. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Doesn't that sound wonderful? So that's what Richard Rohr refers to as the naked now. Right here, right now, all is well. Let's take a breath into that. Being present to what life is right here and right now. Whether life is just dandy or challenging, knowing this too shall pass. So this is different from individuals that you may encounter or you may be, and I've been one of these individuals that sees life as either or, right? Either life is good or life is bad. And if we live there, and I have, my number one concern is feeling safe and secure, building some walls around me perhaps that make me feel comfortable, having these very strong boundaries that nobody can cross, right? I'm not the only one that's been there, right? No. And if that's the consciousness in which I'm living, it's as if I have blinders on, right? I need those structures and systems, and I try to control things so that I can feel safe and secure. Even trying to manipulate things so that I feel like I have a sense of control. I was speaking to someone this past week who I speak to on a fairly regular basis, and when I called her and I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm busy spinning plates, trying to manipulate everything in my life so I can feel good." Isn't that a great awareness? Right? I'm trying to manipulate everything in my life so that I can feel good, because I know how it's supposed to go. I know this plate go this way, this plate has to go that way. And here's the awareness. The further awareness is what she said to me. How do I stop doing that? How do I stop doing that? Well, the first thing I said was, mind your own business. And to her credit, she's a mystic on the path. She said, oh, right. Never really thought of that. Right? And that's what mystics do. Right? They listen. Right? They look for ways to be more aware in life. Right? They look for ways to understand, have compassion and empathy, starting here with ourselves. Right? I mean, she said she was doing this since she was 4 years old. And she's in her 60s now. And perhaps when she had this awareness, she could have, because somebody called her on it in her personal life. Somebody called her on it. And what could she have done? Roll up in a ball in defensiveness, to deny it, to blame the other person. They don't know what they're talking about. But she was aware enough to say, oh, I need to look at that. And that's what a mystic does, what a mystic in training does, right? Looks at that. Part of our struggle in the human condition, says Richard Rohr, is the collision of opposites, he calls it. The understanding that I am human, and at the same time, I am divine. I am fully human, and I am fully divine. And well, how does that work? Right? That's the paradox. That's the mystery. That's entering into the mysticism. Right? That understanding that I am divine and human at the same time. It takes practice to reconcile those two things. Jesus, our great teacher and way shower, understood this. He knew he was fully human and fully divine. Right? He said, look, this is me. Look what I can do. Look what I am. Look what I can lean into. Even in the Easter experience, look what he can lean into. Right? Because he knew who he was. And he said, I'm still fine. Feeling a little fear, but I'm good. I feel fine because I know who I am. And for us on this spiritual path, this is the great work that we are called to do. To integrate this notion of the Christ above, the Christ below, the Christ within, and have it all be what we are made of in our humanity. And it's not a sacrilege to say I am made of this, right? It's the truth of who we are. We are made in that image and likeness of light, of love, right? We are made in that image and likeness. So we grow into that, right? This doesn't, again, and I say this time and time again, but I'm going to say it again, that it takes time and it takes practice while I'm always being a stand for that, for the miracle moment. Always a stand for that. And yet, that's not how it's shown up in my life. My life has been putting one foot in front of the other, doing one practice and that practice over and over again, becoming aware of who I truly am at depth, becoming aware of the resources that I have, and then doing the next indicated thing. This is the awareness of mysticism, of embracing that mystery. Right? That even though it doesn't feel good right now, I know I have everything I need. I know all is well. So, the collision of opposites. It's a both and. For Unity students, this is part and parcel of our message. We're aligned with this, fully human and fully divine, embracing that mystery. Richard Rohr goes further and says, all saying must be balanced by unsaying, and knowing must be balanced by unknowing. And without this balance, he says, religion invariably becomes arrogant, exclusionary, and even violent. The balance of this I know to be true, maybe this isn't true, knowing, unknowing, light and dark, success and suffering. This is the balance. This is living in equanimity, knowing that all these things exist as one, at the same time, and we can live into that. And we can be good. We can be fine right where we are in the center. Sometimes we'll succeed, and sometimes we won't. This is the human condition. Sometimes we'll succeed in remembering this, sometimes we won't. Just like in our lives, sometimes we'll succeed in business, or in relationship, or in family, or in a project, and sometimes we won't. And what is ours as mystics? Say, okay, this has happened. Now what? Now what? I know I'm good. I know I am whole at depth. And the mystic solution to everything and anything is to remember the God that's there, to find the good that's there. A mystic will realize that if it's not working out well, it's working out well. Right? Because what do we know, really? What do we know from our human mind? We don't know a whole lot. Right? We don't know what is working out well for us, even if it doesn't look like it's not working out well. Even if it looks like a failure, we don't know. So what the mystics to do is to say, oh, this doesn't seem like it's working out well, but I can see that it's working out well. I can see with my Christ eyes that it's working out well. Mystics learn to live with this paradox, the collision of opposites. That knowing that life is always for us, no matter what it looks like. And that's important for us. For those of us who are sitting here, if this is your first time here, this may seem like a lot, but it's the truth. It's about you. It's all about you. You are the light of the world. It's not about Jay. It's not about Ted. It's not about MJ. It's not about Lori. It's not about anybody else. It's about me. I am the light of the world. How do I show up? How do I show up as a mystic in the world? How do I show up as love and compassion in the world? How do I live from that center of peace and equanimity? So here's a few things, a few suggestions, a few invitations for you. In these coming weeks, we'll dive deeper into this, but here is where we're going to begin. Because not for nothing, the world needs us right now. And also not for nothing, this may seem like the world really needs us right now, but the world has always needed us. It has always needed those of us who are willing to go within and to excavate the mystic and to be that in the world. So, here's some things. If you don't have a spiritual practice, begin one. Prayer, meditation, all spiritual traditions, all mystics, all great mystics share a practice in common, and that's prayer, meditation, resting in the silence, willing to be open to an experience that is other than this physical experience outside of ourselves, to be open to that. So it's an experience that is bigger than personality, right? It's bigger than ego. So if you don't have a spiritual practice, consider engaging in one. And if you think that coming to church on Sunday is a spiritual practice, it is, and yet you need a daily spiritual practice. Number 2, balance your knowing and your unknowing with these questions. At the end of the day, you might want to ask yourself, how did I experience the divine today? And experiencing the divine most of the times doesn't mean a lightning bolt's going to come out of the sky, right? Or you'll have a big revelation, right? Sometimes the divine, the experience of the divine, is just connecting with someone on the street. It's just noticing something, a flower or some piece of beauty that you haven't noticed before. Okay? Sometimes it's really seeing somebody. That's the way we experience the divine. Before you go to sleep, you might want to ask yourself, what needs forgiveness? Now, this is a twofold practice. So, what am I aware of for me? Did I do something today that I need to make amends for? Or that I need to ask forgiveness for? Right? And then do that, whether it's within or it's without, because it begins with us. And then, if you have been offended in any way during the day and you need to extend forgiveness, do that. Do that in your prayer time before you go to sleep. Lean into the challenge. This is number 3. Lean into the challenging times as much as the easy time. Later on in the book, Richard Rohr says, great love and great suffering are the doorways to compassion and wisdom. So in any experience, be willing to ask for the wisdom that experience brings. And to be willing, number 4, to be willing to see yourself as you truly are. You are the embodiment of the divine, fully human and fully divine. And to remember that you are already what it is you're seeking. You are already what it is you are seeking. A New Thought minister was standing at the back of the church greeting people as they were leaving one morning. A little boy came up to her and she said, good morning, as she was standing in the line. And he said, I've been waiting to tell you something that happened to me, something wonderful. She said, okay, good, let's have it. He said, ever since I was little, I always wanted to be a bunny rabbit. I always wished I was furry and free to hop all over the place. I wished, and I finally gave up because I saw that I was never going to get my wish and become a rabbit. Then, he says, last week a miracle happened. Really, she said, imagining that he had received maybe a pet rabbit. Yes, he said, his eyes open wide in wonder. He said, after all this time of wishing, one night I had a dream, and in my dream I was a bunny rabbit. And I felt what it was like to be furry and to be free and to run and to hop and to play. And I had a wonderful time, and I got my wish. That's wonderful, she agreed. But that's not all, he said excitedly. During my dream, God showed up. God showed up and showed me how wonderful it was to be a bunny rabbit. And when I woke up, I realized that I still had all those feelings of what it's like to be a bunny rabbit already inside me. And they are still there. True for him, a sweet and charming story. True for him, true for us. We are already carrying it. We are already carrying what it is that we wish to be. We are already carrying it inside of us. It's ours to uncover it. So we'll be exploring this more in the weeks to come. And in the meantime, I invite you to join me in remembering that we are mystics in this world to bring peace and love and compassion. That's our gift, and that's our work. May be true for each and every one of us.